What's up guys, FLOWSHIZZLE here, your favorite Astra main, and this is an Astra main's guide to bind. Here's my credentials. I peaked Radiant 98 playing majority Astra. I went top 100, let's fucking go! And have hit Radiant every act since then. Now, onto the guide. Let's start by kind of highlighting what the difference on bind is in comparison to other maps. There are only 2 bomb sites, and there's not really a middle connector that most other maps have to worry about. So realistically, you can kind of tell where the opponents are going just by which side of the map they're working on. So short A in showers means A, hookah and long B means B. So realistically, the most important lanes you're going to be worried about is the short A one and the hookah one, because between the two, they're the easiest and fastest to rotate between the sites. So if you think about it like this, if you're going to hit A and you want to rotate to B, the closest way would be to go back through hookah and vice versa. So let's start by answering the question, which site should you be playing? And in this specific instance, on this specific map, I believe Astra can actually play both very well. This video is going to be a little bit longer. I'll have timestamps down below. Well, let's start with the A site and how you should be positioning your stars when you're playing on the A site. The most important one is always this one way that you can place on top of this box that covers short A. Makes it very hard for the attackers to cross toward this cubby, as anyone from triple will get pretty much one of the freest kills in their life as they try to cross over. To really shut down any fast executes on the A site, you combine the one way with just a star in front of the teleporter. This way, even if they try to do something like, let's say, jet dash or raise satchel, you can sometimes pull fast enough to catch them in the middle of them doing it, or at the very least, stop the rest of their teammates from flooding in. So if I'm playing on the A site, I'll have this one up here for the smoke, this one down here for the pull. This just makes this really hard for any of the attackers to take up short A. And then my last one will usually be committed to some sort of showers presence. I like to push up in showers and try to take control of this, making sure that any A hit will be almost a one-sided push through short A. And if you've played enough bind, you know that A site is actually kind of hard to hold if you don't have showers control. Planting is much more difficult, and if the defenders still have control of showers, realistically you can't really push past this point of the truck without it getting very dangerous, as you can get sandwiched from the left and from the right. One thing you can do early on is to smoke out the entrance to showers, making sure that the attackers will need to commit some sort of utility to coming in. So Sovas commonly will try to dart this back wall, or they'll drone through, or dart through, or Roomba through. All of these things are very common things that attackers will do to try to gain showers. But remember, if you can bait it out earlier, like in showers, they won't be able to use that sort of utility on site. So try to hold on to showers control as long as possible. After you've given up showers, you can either continue to be playing it by watching it, but sometimes you can't be watching both. So then you'll decide to smoke one of them. You can just smoke a normal showers like this. But normally you don't always have to smoke this if you, for example, as before, held this angle and realized that nobody has been in this outside showers area, that they are not really committing. Maybe they're just deciding to hit B or something like that. Then you can actually skimp on this one and just focus on the short A, making sure that your smokes are cycled. I will say though, as much as possible, try to wait out using your smokes, because if you use them too early, you won't be able to continually smoke short, as this is the much more dangerous angle. So if you find that they're not really committing any utility to try to hold showers, see if in the future rounds you can kind of get away with maybe just jump spotting and then only smoking if they've actually made presence, if they're like out there. Just make sure that you clear showers and you'll be all set. In terms of star setups for B, there's a lot, and it depends on how you're planning on playing out the round. So the major 2 that you want to think of is just really simple, one for garden and one for hookah. These just block the entrances and make the enemy have to run through a smoke, making it easier for you. But it's not so simple, especially if you're the one playing on B. Normally you would want to commit more resources. Bind is 2 sites, no mid. So what that means is that one of the sites is always going to have 3 players and the other is going to have 2. What you want to do is base it according to the amount of players you have. So for example, if I'm having 3 players on B, I'll stack more toward the A. If I have 3 players on A, then I want to stack more stars toward the B. So with these 2 being almost mandatory, let me explain how you can alter or vary your star placements. The first one is an effort to hold hookah. You can have your star here, and essentially what you're going to want to do is break usually the raised Roomba that's bouncing around trying to clear hookah, and you could smoke this off, pretty much making it really hard for the attackers to not commit utility to come through. If they come through and they just run through dry, it's usually a free kill for you. If they're running it fast, or if your raise is calming it, you can actually hold it dry without popping the smoke. until they start coming through. And if you have good communication with your teammates Raze that usually plays on A, you can combo with the teleporter, having a pull here as they nade through. That's the ideal, but sometimes it's hard to do that in rank, so smoking is usually a safe route. But I want to preface that there is a point where the attackers have committed enough utility that you need to back out of hookah. So with this star here, a common example I have is the enemy Omen flashing through hookah from this corner, just blinding all of it. And then obviously, even if this is smoked, it becomes a little scary to hold it. Sometimes Sova drone comes through and it tags you. You're going to need to get out. So that's what this star is for. I keep it here even though I'm playing on top of it. That way, if I need to get out, I can just pop the smoke and I can pop that smoke and I can cross back to site very safely. This is the perfect reason why you need these two. It's because it allows you to get from an aggressive position such as in hookah or in garden onto site without being shot from either of the lanes. If you're not holding hookah, then you need to be trying to fight for garden. Having a star something like this makes it super easy to play off of this corner right here. Usually you'll have your Sky or Phoenix or somebody with a flash playing in this angle, so that way when they've slowly started to make noise coming up B long, you can be playing an off angle like this and you guys work in conjunction so that if you spot, you can pull, they can flash, and then all of a sudden you guys swing on blind players and get free kills. You'll see how this third star is mostly the flex, but you'll also realize what this star is for is in that case the trades don't go in favor of you, you can always smoke it off and cross back onto site. And as you're running back to site, you smoke off hookah and you can also get onto site safely without getting shot from hookah. If you don't want to play aggro, then you're going to put the normal two, and then the third star is just going to be for the run out. I personally like the same two stars, and I'll put one around this area outside of garden. That way when they're smoked, I can play in this cubby, and if they run out, I pull, and this way I can get the free kills here, and anyone dropping out of hookah will need to peek the same angle that I'm already staring at right here, and that way I have to do less work. You can position differently. If I'm, for example, playing back sight, I'll have these two, and I'll have one for the drop out of hookah. Smoking the two, if I hear them drop, I pull, I swing, I get the kills, and I'm going to continue wide swinging to try to continue getting more kills on the long players coming out. Either of these work. It all depends on where you're planning on engaging, and it also depends on the position that you're playing. Now that we've gone over defensive star defaults, let's talk about how you should be playing around your stars. I already kind of went into it a little bit, but in general, biggest rule of thumb is don't waste your smokes too early smoking out something that doesn't need to be smoked. Ideally, if you can force the opponents to run through a smoke, that is the best time for you. But sometimes you get too much pressure, sometimes they take hookah and you can't openly move around on site, so you want to smoke them earlier. I just recommend that you don't fall for bait, such as just Raze Roomba or Sova drones when they're not falling up behind it. Razes commonly default throwing this Roomba off of this point so it bounces into hookah, but sometimes they'll just head toward the A site. And if you've committed your smokes, if it's a late round hit, it's going to be really hard to hold the B site. Raze is such a prevalent agent on this map due to her nade, and breaking this Roomba does a lot of things that only Raze mains would understand. Let me explain what goes through a Raze's mind. The Raze sees her Roomba spot you and hookah. After you break the Roomba and she peeks, she realizes that you're hiding on one of the sides. Guess what she does next? She uses her nades to clear one of the sides as she takes hookah. This way she'll nade right and then clear left, or nade left and clear right. This is where you should be thinking proactively. If you know she's going to do this, breaking the Roomba, leaving hookah, smoking it out after she nades and clears hookah essentially denies two of her abilities, her nade and her boombot, and therefore she can't use it on the site. So now all the risky angles, such as right here and back site, that are normal nade spots are now removed from play. Baiting out utility early in hookah is very strong and makes it a lot easier to just sit back site later. The same thing is for B long. If you can break the Sova drone earlier, it won't be able to drone all the way up onto site. By showing presence early long, Sovas are naturally inclined to drone from here. And if you drone from this point, then that means it'll naturally time out right as you get out of garden and can't clear back site. If you don't put any pressure B long, Sovas are allowed to drone from here, clear everything up until back of site, and you essentially have nowhere to hide. This is where there's a big benefit in playing aggressive, because you can shut down these sort of information plays. Next is to find places to play aggro from top tube. So playing an angle like this is really good, as it usually catches off attackers that are trying to take hookah. The one issue with this is that if you don't have a player holding garden, you can easily die by the attackers just swinging out into it. So what you can do is just alternate. You smoke this one, you can now hold hookah for a while until the smoke fades. Or you can do vice versa, smoke out hookah, and now you can watch long from top 2. These are all off angles that attackers aren't usually ready for and can earn you a net free kill before using your smoke. So rather than smoking before they come out, you get the kill and then you smoke, essentially making the push a lot more weaker. The last thing on B is that you want to spot when to use your smokes as you're trying not to use them too early. So a jump spot is a relatively safe way at doing so. You smoke it if you see somebody. If you don't, then you're all set. This long one is a little bit harder. Maybe you're going to want to throw in a jump peek. That's when you hold W and D. For example, I'm going to the right, so it's W and D. And then when I jump, I'm going to hold S and A to get back. It's kind of a very jittery sort of jump where you kind of peek out and then are immediately sucked back in. For star management, you're essentially basing it off of 2 things. One, which is the site that is stacked more. If it has 3 players, you can have 2 stars there. If it has 2 players, you probably want the 3 stars there. Also, as always, base it off of sound, information, where you want your stars depends on what site you think that they're going to be hitting. And last of all, usually if you can, prioritize a little bit more toward holding B because B is harder to retake than A is. B has this one tiny choke and this other tiny choke on elbow. And essentially once B has been taken, you're gonna have a rough time retaking. A site, on the other hand, has a lot of big avenues where defenders can clear one at a time, making it a lot more simple to retake. So if you're gonna gamble on one of them, gamble on retaking A and not B. To round out the defense side, let's talk about some defensive Astra walls. In general, it is almost always better to play retake with Astra Wall as it's hard to time your Astra Walls properly since it takes so long to get into Astra form, place down the 2 points, and then watch the Astra Wall go up. So the best retake Astra Wall for the A site is to actually just wall off where this yellow line is because that's where they can plant. If you do something like this, you actually can just stick the spike without the attackers being able to do anything. As a defender, you could just hug this wall and it's pretty much the easiest defuse of your life. Attackers are kind of forced to try to like push through it, maybe throw some utility on it if they're lucky enough to have it, but keep in mind a lot of times this wall just catches them off guard. Defensive Astra walls also work kind of the same. You can do something like this if you want to take more of sight, and it's honestly a very solid wall. Sometimes though, you can get away with doing something like this and just walling off just to defuse the spike. This is the same way as it makes it very, very awkward for attackers to come through and stick it. This is kind of a last-ditch effort though. The first one is if you have an equal amount of players, maybe it's like a 3v3, 4v4, 5v5. It makes sense to throw that wall because you have enough players, but when you're in a down situation, let's say like a 2-on-4 or something like that, throwing up this wall might actually be better because you don't have enough manpower to retake the entire site, so you just take a little bit of it and then you stick the spike, putting a lot of pressure on the attackers to make the right play rather than you needing to do something out of the ordinary. So how should you be thinking on the attack side? Well, for starters, you're going to always want to take one of the extremities. It's either garden or showers, if best, both, but that's going to obviously depend on more than just you, and it's going to depend on some coordination with your team. Always try to focus on one of them. Shutting down one of the extremities really locks down a lot of information. Make sure you always have someone on your team breaking the Sova dart that comes here or up here. It depends on where the Sova likes to dart, but essentially it's really common for them to really dart right off the bat. And if they spot nothing in the beginning, they're going to know it's not a B. So you have to make sure that they're on their toes. They always have to be worried about it, are not allowed to over rotate just because of your team's negligence. After taking one of the extremities, hopefully it's the site that your team is planning on hitting, then you can just kind of set up and make sure your smokes are ready for the execute. Hookah is also a really great place to try to take space, throwing some sort of pull on this side. That way if your raise is Roombaing, you pull on this side. It makes it really hard for any defenders to hold and they have to be trapped in this corner. Once you've taken hookah, garden, and showers control, you essentially can go anywhere and it will probably be a relatively successful hit. So essentially just think of it like that. Bind in general isn't very tactical because it's so close quarters and the rotates are long unless you're going through the teleporters. Get comfortable at getting picks from the extremities, so that's from showers onto the truck angle, triple angle, heaven, the cubby, and then close bench. If you can get comfortable kind of holding for these, the jump ups, you can open up sites just by yourself. Let's talk about star defaults for the attack side. So where should you be using your stars on the attack side? In general, there are 2 spots where you're trying to very easily take space, and that is long B and showers. The easiest way to take space here is to make sure before the barriers even drop, have a star by this area of garden. This makes it really hard for any jet oppers, anyone really realistically trying to play this aggressive long angle to play, as they will just get pulled out, and if they're a jet, they're going to be forced to dash. If they're any other agent without movement abilities, they're kind of in a weird spot. Having your Sova dart something like long will be perfect. Just make sure that even if you have your star here, don't gain a complete false sense of security, because jets can still dash after they get pulled. So something like doing one jump peek just to see if anything is there, to make sure you don't die instantly, is a good idea, just out of precaution. Also make sure that they didn't cross if you didn't have the dart, because if you don't have the dart and you get there late, then this pull isn't going to do anything. For the shower side, putting a star right here is about the perfect timing for defenders that are trying to aggressively take showers. So putting the barrier starts here. By the time you run, this star will be ready, and you pull, they can't really cross. And even if they're like a mirror matchup and they're an Astra smoking it out, or an Omen smoking out, which is really common, you actually can beat them into showers. And with the use of like one flash or even just a dart, you can really slow them enough to the point where they can't really hold showers very safely. Doing it like that in combination with one other agent helping you clear showers will gain you a lot of map presence and get you a free orb. How do you execute on the sites? Let's start from the A site, and it really depends on how you're hitting it and what the circumstances of the round are. So let's start from the most basic one, where it's just a normal gun round. In that case, you're going to want to take less of the site, because in a lot of situations you want to just get out to post plant. So you can throw something like this truck smoke and the triple smoke, and smoke these two, and you'll realize it blocks the heaven. It cuts off anyone playing back triple, and it allows you to get up and fight for U-Haul. Showers will need to worry about this tiny gap here, but in general, as long as they're aware of it, it's not too bad, and it covers both relatively safely. As for your abilities, you want to kind of combo with your jet to take U-Haul. U-Haul is one of the most important positions on Bind's A site, and if you have U-Haul control, normally you win the round. I put 2 stars here to guarantee I get into A, and combo with a jet dash is pretty much perfect. So right before your jet dashes, you're gonna wanna concuss, and then you're gonna want to pull in U-Haul. If any player is playing in this area and they see this star go down and that the concuss is gonna come out, they're gonna back up toward U-Haul where this pull is. This spot phase safe for the jet to dash into, and then as she's clearing U-Haul, she'll get a fragile victim there, and if she has a judge, well, I'm sorry for that dude. You can also smoke out heaven and triple, but keep in mind this leaves you open to take fights with triple, so it's dependent, but this shuts down any defenders trying to push out to help from heaven. As you see, if you drop out from hell, then you would be instantly spotted from any of the short A players. Normally I recommend this one. Next is the very, very deep smokes, which is the heaven one and the spawn or vents one. This essentially doesn't cover anything on the run up. You have to fight triple still, bench, everything, U-Haul, but it allows you to hold site much easier if you bottle the defenders up at the heaven choke and the vents choke rather than letting them onto site. So what do I mean by this? If you throw these 2 smokes, defenders feel very free to just run up because they feel safe. As if they were to be in danger, you would have to push through your own smokes. When you are throwing smokes like this, defenders now no longer know how deep you are on site and now have to wait for the smokes to fade. If there are teammates on site, yeah, sure, they might run through it, but if not, they're probably going to sit back and wait for the rest of their team to rotate. So when would you want to do this type of execute versus the closer smokes? So you mostly want to do this on eco rounds when you have a gun advantage and you have range advantage, meaning that you would more than be happy to take a fight against someone with a pistol here and back there because you have a better gun. On gun rounds, it doesn't make as much sense, or you don't want to do it as often because you sometimes just don't want to take the fights. But on eco rounds is a pristine example of just taking the entirety of site. It kind of takes away a lot of the randomness, because if you're playing to your gun's advantage, then you just find a lot more success. So how do you execute on the B site? The normal 2 smokes are 1 for elbow and 1 for spawn, and these are pretty standard. I don't think I really need to explain why these are good, but the 3rd star is kind of the variable star, how you want to use it for your pull. Normally backside is the best part. It covers a large chunk of the area, makes it super easy with a raise combo. If anyone's there, they're dead. Essentially, with this star being here, it limits defenders to be basically only playing in the tube or in this cubby, or maybe back here, but that's like kind of the only one. Otherwise, they're off site. So realistically, as an attacker, you only have to worry about 3 different areas. This is a situation that's a little bit more niche, but I want you to think about it dependent on how the round goes. If your teammates have gotten a kill in hookah or a kill in long, and they know where the second player is and they aren't on site. For example, a lot of the times they double up in hookah or they double up long, and essentially is that after you get the first kill, maybe they get traded, you're not exactly going to want to pull the normal spot because you know that they're not playing backside. That's just a waste of a pull. So what you want to do is actually place your second one outside of spawn, right there. So that way, for example, we get the first pick on some guy hookah, and then me and my teammate are running up. My teammate dies to the second player that doubled up with him. I trade. This second star makes it so that any defenders that are trying to flood onto site to defend the site are just going to get cut off, and they're not going to expect it because of this smoke. They won't see the star out there. They're gonna run out thinking, oh, I'm gonna run back site and try to hold the site while I wait for my A teammates to rotate. All of a sudden they're stuck in a gravity well and I'm in hookah and I get the freest kill of my life. Having a star outside this choke point stops any of the rotates to retake and allows your team to catch up, because sometimes these kills come so fast that not all the teammates are ready to take the site. Additional places I would recommend a star is this cubby, and if you're really worried about this one, but to be fair, I feel like this one's a lot more easy to clear than that one, so I would recommend prioritizing cubby and you should be all set. Astra's ult on the attack side might seem a little confusing to use, but here are a couple good ones that will get you some free wins. The first one is just a normal cut the site in half. I would do it something like this, and I know it's not very specific, but essentially it allows you to get out here for free and it allows you to take U-Haul control. This is something you still need to fight for and usually still want to fight for because U-Haul control is so important on a retake. Usually if you as the attacker lose U-Haul on the retake, the defenders usually get the defuse. If you combo that wall with the stun suck combo I mentioned before, you really will have an easy time as none of their teammates can really rotate in to help. This will get you a free plant, and with a shower split, solid strat. If you are just trying to get the plant, I recommend something like this. In combination, you'll throw a smoke up here and you can just go for the plant. This smoke is kind of optional. It just doesn't allow the defenders to kind of jump spot and see what's going on. So throwing this smoke sometimes just helps with a little extra security. But you'll still take U-Haul control and you get the plant down. Essentially what you're going to want to do is from this corner, and you're going to wall off all of B site here. And now you're allowed to take the A site, get the plant down if you want to hit A. If you feel like there are a lot of players that have rotated, you can always hit the TP, and the great part with the Astra wall is they can't hear it. Running through hookah, you can get out onto site, and even the B site players, unless they're pushed up, but in this case, if you've already taken the A site, usually they're not going to push up. They're probably rotating through spawn to help at A. Now you usually get a free site, and you've essentially locked them out of any sort of info that they might have had. For the B site, there's no real good wall that you can really use. Usually you just use the wall as a pseudo smoke, except that they can't spam through it, and you can take the site according to that. This one has a slight benefit of the fact that you can push through elbow if you aggressively take it and hold it. But in general, you're still going to need a combo with some sort of smoke. For post plant, it's also very strong. Throwing up the wall like this after you've gotten spiked down and just holding it like this when the time is ticking down is also really good, as defenders are rarely expecting you to just be like at this corner. And sometimes the fact that they can't just spam through it can be a game changer. So lastly, some tips for the map bind. Jet opping is super prevalent on this map, something like up here, there. Here are 3 spots just on short A. Learning how to properly jump peek makes it really hard for them to hit you and makes it really easy for you to find out which side this jet is playing. Number 2, if you've gotten good at taking the extremities, you have essentially 2 free ult orbs. On the entire map, you can funnel toward your Raze, you can funnel toward your Sova. These are agents with abilities and ults that can instantly open up the round. Number 3 is be careful of this cubby. I feel like everyone knows that someone can be in it, but I don't think anyone actually takes the due diligence to actually check to see if someone is there. If you're pushing up from the market side, you can kind of jump spot or just jump across, and then that way you'll know if anyone has just pushed up against the barrier. Number 4, it's a very common thing for Razes just to satchel right off the barrier drop. They'll hop on top of the box, drop a satchel below the barrier even drops, and then when the barrier does, they instantly pop the satchel, pop their ult, and they catch people here completely unwary. If you see the enemy has a Raze ult, what you want to do is put a star here. That way, in the case the Raze does pop it right off the drop, you can just pull and you essentially make her waste her ult. She's probably just going to shoot this randomly And if you have teammates on one or the other side, you probably just get the free kill after that. Number 5, the best place to plant is actually not really here. It's actually right here. This makes it super open from anything from hookah to deep long. Rather than this corner, which is the more common one, it's hard to shoot from hookah. The only way actually being to like wall bang through this corner. So don't force your teammates to do that. Also, you can't even see it from deep long. They have to push into garden, and sometimes that's just no good. If you have the time, do it from here. It's much better. And the last tip I have for you is to be as map aware as possible. Doing these jumping things, spotting to know when to smoke, allows you to continually stare at the minimap to see if anything is going on the other side. Sometimes it's hard to rely on your teammates to make the proper calls so that you can help them. Staring at the minimap allows you to be aware of how the round is developing, if you need to rotate, what type of abilities have been used. These are all things you can actually just notice from just paying attention to the minimap. That is honestly what Astra is, just kind of a minimap goddess. Playing safely allows you to be the best supportive Astra you can be. I hope you guys enjoyed this guide. Don't forget to hit the like button. It really honestly helps the channel out tremendously. And subscribe for more content. More guides like this are on their way. And even a few Viper ones if you're trying to be a controller main just like me. Don't forget, I stream 3 times a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 4 p.m. EST. So if you want to talk to me live, I'll see you there on Twitch. I also do coaching, and if you have a VOD that you want me to review, I have Google Forms down below where you can send me your info and I'll take a look, and maybe you'll be in the next YouTube video. Anyways, thank you guys. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.